Hey, everybody, welcome back to what has turned into a pretty interesting series of interviews that have no name. So, the interviews with no name, but interviewing interesting people in the professional beauty industry. And today I've got two very interesting people with me, Brad and Joe from a company named Zuka. I'm going to let them explain to you what their product is, but know that much like me, this is not their industry of origin. They have come from places I don't want to be, like math. And they'll tell you a little bit about themselves. So why don't you share a little bit about yourselves and your product, and we'll go from there.
We'll probably start with the product. Joe's actually wearing one right now. So this is a Zuka, and it's a hair blocking collar. It stops hair, water, and product from seeping down the client's neckline.
Right.
And Joe came up with the initial idea because he hated being itchy after a haircut. And he asked me, and I also hated being itchy after a haircut. So we figured there's probably a product in there somewhere.
Right.
This was the result, and it's been really fun and exciting. Like you were saying, it's a new industry for us, but it's been a really welcoming industry, and it's been a lot of fun developing a new product like this.
So people who've listened to me know that I don't come from this industry. My background's in nursing, so it's kind of a weird stretch for me to get my arms around some of this. So let me just run this by you guys. You went to get your haircut, and at some point you were like, I'm so sick of this. It itches. It's driving me crazy. And then tell me what you did.
Yeah, so I was working long hours, and
Doing what?
I have a math tutoring company. There's a franchise called Mathnasium, and been teaching math now for 16 years. And
everybody just threw up in their mouth when you said you took math, but it's okay.
I like to make it easier for people. So
okay.
At the time, I was working very long hours, and I'd go get my hair. I had to choose when to get my hair cut because I didn't like being itchy. So I'd either take time away from my family on the weekend to get my hair cut so I could go home and shower, or I'd get my hair cut at my lunch break and go to work itchy for the next 8 hours, miserable. And so one day after work, I ran down to Home Depot, got some silicone caulking, routed out a mold, made it, used it for my haircut the very next day, hopped on a flight an hour and a half later to go to a wedding with my family, and I wasn't itchy. And I was like, well, this solves my problem, but maybe there's a product here. So I called Brad, who was getting his doctorate at the time.
In math?
No, it's kind of like a tech field that a lot of people don't know about. It's called human factors.
Okay, so another scary thing for all of us. None of us speak your language, but go on.
It's a little bit more. It's a little bit maybe more up your alley as far as it's a psychology field, which is sort of thing. And it was cool and it was interesting, but I wasn't cut out for graduate school. I did not like doing projects constantly and all of that. And at the end of the day, you get, someone signs off on your paper and gives you a pat on the back, and then no one ever reads it because no one reads these studies hardly. So when Joe talked to me about it, this other idea was much more exciting because we're actually building something that people will care about and people will know about. And it's a much more fulfilling path for me than graduate school.
Excellent.
So that was I didn't actually finish the doctorate program because I moved out to Reno from Kansas to go after Zuka.
Where in Kansas?
Wichita.
Oh, I live in Kansas City. So
okay.
Yeah. All right. So tell me, when was that phone call? Like, how long is from that phone call to today? What's the time frame?
3 years? Yeah, I think 3 years. So we're still relatively early on in the process of a whole company and product, but it doesn't feel like it's been 3 years.
No,
not at all. Which is a good thing. Like, I still like doing this even after the 3 years. So that part's awesome.
So you made this product, and I can see it, and I've actually felt one, when I met with you guys out at Premiere. Um, so the benefit of this is you're more comfortable as a client. Does it replace anything or make anything easier? Obviously, if I were a stylist or a barber, I would want to do it for the comfort of my client. But is there also am I replacing a neck strip, or am I replacing something else that would be beneficial to me, or no?
Well, this is a common confusion.
Okay.
So the neck strip, a lot of people seem to think the neck strip is to create a seal or to stop water or hair, and it's not.
Right.
I'm sure you guys are well aware, and being so focused on disinfecting and sanitary procedure, it's just a barrier. So the paper neck strip is not a seal. You won't find seals made out of paper anywhere. It's a terrible material for creating a seal.
Also, just so you know, a terrible material for infection control. I'm constantly telling people, you think that piece of tissue paper is going to help? It's wet tissue paper, even worse, right? So I'm not a huge fan of them. I think that they may have originally been intended for what you guys have developed. That might have been the intent. But just, you know better, you do better. And so now you guys are doing better. So
we think what seems to be, and I'm curious of your thoughts on this, what seems to be the most sanitary way of doing this part of the process is to have freshly laundered capes.
Yep.
And then putting the Zuka over the top of that. It makes for a very clean neckline. It's very sanitary because you can't have something transfer from the prior client to the new client. And it's a much more comfortable experience. You don't have potential product leaking down the neckline. You don't have a client looking at a cape that already has hair clippings on it and wondering about whether this is actually clean or not.
You're not ruining their shirt, those kinds of things. So does it go over or under the cape? I don't know that I remember this.
It goes over. We do have some people who use it under the cape with some success. If you want the best waterproofing, then you need it to go over the cape.
Okay.
Because then it sheds off onto the cape instead of potentially. Got a dog coming up to me right now.
That's okay. I've got one laying next to me. They're very good coworkers.
Yeah.
So it's the best seal is over the cape. We do have some customers who use it under the cape, but that's kind of a tricky thing to recommend because, as you know, in some regions they require paper neck strips. Yeah. So we can't really tell people to use them under the cape.
Okay.
As a replacement, because that might cause issues with their board because they specify paper neck strips.
And in other regions, they just say a barrier, in which case they can. So.
Right. And the reality is I think some of those rules are changing. I think a lot of states are going to go into rulemaking this year because they're going to be looking at adding some of the guidelines they had for reopening post-COVID. They're going to review whether those need to be made into rules versus guidelines. And so when they go into rulemaking, I think things like neck strips may start to come out just because they don't do either of the things we think they're supposed to do, right? I mean, I don't think they're supposed to do them and you don't, but somehow they've just been in the rules since, the beginning of hair time and have never changed. So I get that. So, all right. So now you're making them, you manufacture them. They're a silicone product, correct?
Yep.
So you don't have any issues with sensitivity on clients, that kind of thing. And walk me through how you manage this product, water, cleaning, disinfecting. How do you do that with the Zuka?
Sure. Yeah. So what we find the best method to do first is to sanitize. So to throw it into a wash basin, throw a dab of soap, shampoo or conditioner. Everyone kind of has their own, but just soap works great.
Yeah.
You put a dab of soap on, rub the Zuka together with soap and water, rinse it off. All the hair pretty much comes off. And then after that, you can throw it into like a little Tupperware barbicide, or if you have barbicide spray, you can spray with barbicide spray. Let it sit per your guys' recommendations, 10 minutes.
Yep.
And then wipe it down.
And it doesn't, you've had, like, what's your oldest customer? How long have these been out?
Almost 3 years.
Well,
almost 3 years. Okay.
For Bridget, yeah, before. So
yeah.
3.5 3.5 years.
And they hold up, they're not getting like gummy or anything.
Still using the same ones. And I always give her the updated versions too, but she still has the original ones that were handmade.
Yeah.
We're hand mixing and working with the silicone, and
that are from before Zuka was even a company.
Yeah. So they help. They
super
help a long
cool.
time.
One of the things we love about these interviews is we have interviewed some people who have made some very innovative products, but most of them are from this industry. So they come from I want to do this because it makes it better, mostly for the stylist, to be honest. And what I love about this piece is that you are the consumer. You are the person who said, this is driving me crazy. I'm going to find a solution. I'm not going to become a barber. I'm going to become the person who fixes the solution. So go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say the original idea, going off of what you just said, the original idea was to sell them to the general public to take to their salons to use. What we found, though, is that it's better for the stylists and the barbers to have them because they can, they don't have to leave the shop with a piece of silicone that's covered in hair. They can actually deal with the mess that they're used to dealing with cutting hair better than the customer. So that was actually, we thought we were going to be selling them to people like us who are just customers who are fed up with being itchy or having to go home and shower. But we realized the real value is actually also for the stylist, because if we could find someone who could offer us a service where we're not all messy and itchy afterward, I'd keep going back to that person.
Right. Well, and in most states, you couldn't bring in your own item. Most states would prohibit the stylist or barber from using something that you've brought in, or at the very least, they would have to disinfect it before they use it on you. So it's kind of this time situation that doesn't actually need to occur. So if I were a barber and I wanted to use them, how many do you have to do like a whole day? Like how many do most people have?
It's super variable. So we've talked to some of our customers we have barbers who will do 30 clients in a day. And that's incredibly fast for a bill a day. So in that scenario, obviously you need a lot more. We also have people who, especially if you're talking about more in-depth services than just like a quick trim, those services that take a lot longer, or that just clients who don't have as many, stylists or barbers who don't have as many clients in a day, they can get away with a lot less. What we like to recommend is that you have as many Zukas as you generally have clients in a day. And it's sort of like the cape thing.
Yeah.
It's a recommendation for convenience. You could get away with using less, but if you always have a fresh one ready to go, then you can just clean and disinfect them at the end of the day in a big batch instead of having to do it partway through the day because you've run out. So it's all kind of it's a trade-off between convenience, or about convenience, that the stylist or barber needs to make for themselves. But we do recommend having as many as you use in a day. That being said, I think Philip Wolf has like 50.
Well, I mean, if you can utilize 50 in a day, you've got a great business going on. So good for you, right? But one of the things I've noticed when you had it on, if you can like sort of hold it up for me, is that it doesn't have a closure at the end. Something that's going to grab hair. I think people are picturing it would be Velcro or something that would grab hair. Yeah. But go ahead, tell me about how it closes.
So it's intentionally designed. One of the reasons we pick silicone is it's a great seal, but it also adheres to itself. So, I used to have I'd bring a different shirt to try to eliminate the hair issue, but I'd also have the stylist pull the cape as tight as possible, basically choking me to try to limit the amount of hair.
Yeah.
And with the Zuka, you can drape the cape on loosely, and then this just drapes right over the cape, and it just adheres to itself. So
So it also allows for different sizes, right? You could have a kid sitting in the chair, and then you could have somebody with a really large neck sitting in the chair.
For a child, it'll just loop around itself a few more times. Like 1.5 times. And then for someone with I have a bigger neck, it's, 17.5 inches,
Right.
and it overlaps significantly still. So it fits a wide variety of necks. And because it adheres to itself, there's no fixed positions for closures.
Mm-hmm. And our thought on going without a fastener was strategic, as far as it's a more like simple is good. The more simple makes something, the better it is, because there's less areas for things to fail. And when you look at something like capes, where do you see the failure? It's the clasp wearing out, or the clasp ripping off, the snaps coming off, the snaps rusting. If you can avoid those closure mechanisms, it's more durable, it looks better, and on top of all that, relating to barbicide, I imagine it makes it much easier to disinfect, because you don't have nooks and crannies that little bits of dirt and hair and whatever can get caught in and just be a breeding ground for things. So being completely smooth makes it very easy to clean as well.
Well, also, I mean, in my, when I think about how that works, there's no, Velcro is a common closure, and Velcro, of course, is going to have all kinds of hair in it, and would make it difficult to wash. But then the other thing is, in a state where neck strips are not required, but that maybe a barrier of some sort is, this could be a huge cost savings, right? Because now in the beginning, I might have some upfront costs, but now I'm not buying something I'm throwing in the trash. Or if you're pretty environmentally minded, I'm not buying something that's going to sit in a landfill forever. It is a piece of tissue paper, but they all add up, right? So
think of how many of those pieces of tissue paper are used every day in the country and the world. I mean, it's an incredible amount of stuff going into the landfills, for sure. It is. That was another thing we did really like about using this durable silicone.
So do you see it? So I know you guys did it because you don't like getting the little hair bugs down there that are making you itch. But are you seeing stylists that do color services using them to prevent, when I get my hair colored, I always wear, no shock, I get my hair colored. Hey, get my hair colored. But when I go to get my hair colored, I always wear a shirt that I don't have a lot of love for, because I think if some of it just were to touch my shirt by accident, I don't want it to get ruined. So are you seeing stylists use it for chemical services?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, they use it to stop both chemical services from like staining or ruining shirt collars. There's kind of a safety aspect there as well. Keeping things like different bleaching products and stuff from going down the client's shirt and not being washed up as quickly. Actually, on top of all of that, the other common problem that I'm sure you've experienced is getting your shirt wet when you go from the wash basin back to the chair.
Oh, I hate that.
Yeah.
So here's something you guys don't know about. When you have long hair and they put you in the wash basin and they keep lifting your head up to get the color off from at the very back of your head, almost always some of that's running down because they're having to manage your hair while they're moving their hand. And so, if you've got short hair, they can be putting both hands back there to make sure, where the water's going. But with long hair, that's not the case. So I almost always end up with a nice little swoosh of wetness back there. Not so bad in the summer, but in the winter, it's a little chilly. Yeah. So I have two other questions for you. One, I have to ask, what is your little Zuka animal on your shirt? What is that? What is that representation? Because I think it's starling. Is it I don't know.
Sphinx.
It is a what?
Sphinx.
Sphinx. All right. It's very cute. That was my first question. My second question is, you guys seem like guys who have, go ahead.
One thing, the hairless cat. So it's kind of got a bit of the idea being that this is like a hair blocking collar. So
that was a good idea.
Hairless Sphinx cat.
Yeah, that's a great idea. You guys did a good job with that. Take credit for it, even if it wasn't your idea, because that's a good idea. My other question then is, I'm guessing guys like you, guys who have like the ability to do math and all these other things, probably get bored fairly easily. Got anything else cooking that's next in line?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's
one. You don't have to share, but if you want to, we'd love to hear.
To share some information. So we kind of took COVID as an interesting opportunity to really invest and focus on some new products.
Mhm.
I think when we've already seen it to some extent in some states that the industry comes back strong, and it's a great opportunity for stylists and barbers to really up their game and improve their services and come back better than they were before the pandemic and before all this craziness. So one thing we're working on is a comb line, and it's going to be a very, very unique line of combs. The material is not commonly used, but is superior. It has some cool design features to it. So we can't talk too much about it because it's still kind of in the works.
Right.
But that is a big project we're working on right now. And our initial testing has us really excited. The reviews and impressions are very.
So good. So we can have you back when you're ready to kick it off. And, I mean, we'd love to be that person, the people that can kick it off for you. So anything else do you guys want to share with our audience? I mean, this will go out to about 1 million people by email. People can watch it on YouTube. Anything else you want to say to the people who are most likely to be buying your product? Anything you want them to hear from you?
I think right now, it's kind of a crazy world. I don't think that's a controversial statement at this point.
No.
But I do think we've really looked at it as a time to kind of grow and get ready for when things return. And I think that that's a great attitude that stylists and barbers, a lot already do have. But I would very much recommend that they have and keep that attitude, because it's a time to kind of reassess their strategy, their services, the way they do things. I think Zuka is a great thing to add in to improve your service, but just focusing on improvements in general. So that way, when everything's back to normal, they're stronger than they were beforehand.
Exactly.
There's a whole lot of clients whose regular stylist or barber or whatever, everything's been kind of mixed up now. There's an opportunity for those who are focusing on improving their service to gain new clients. Exactly. And I think that's an important thing for people to focus on.
It is. You want to add anything? If you don't have anything to add, you want to tell me how you came up with the name Zuka? I've been dying to hear that. It's like a drunken, dart at a wall kind of thing.
Oh, it's
quite scientific.
Well, we've been told we need to come up with a better story that's more romanticized. It was very much, we had a few criteria we really wanted. There's certain letters that just have memorable, strong sounds like Z and K. We wanted it to be short, and we wanted it to be something we can buy like a domain name for, or at least a decent domain for, and something that can be trademarked. It's really hard to really come up with a name that is unique and memorable. And we'll probably end up changing this story in the future. But what happened, we were just talking about names or things that sounded cool. And for some reason, I'm talking to Joe. And for some reason, I just thought the Zuka Joe bubblegum. And I'm like, Zuka, that's interesting sounding. And that was just how it kind of came about. And then we did some testing and talking with people, and people responded well to it. And so that's the actual story.
I actually like the story. And you know what? It doesn't pigeonhole you into one thing, right? It's not the name of this exact one thing. Eventually, when you have a broad spectrum of products that you offer that are, under the Zuka umbrella, it doesn't, I love the story. So I'm okay. I'm okay with the story. So thank you guys so much for giving me time. I know it's a busy time of the year, the end of the year for everybody. So we really appreciate your time. When you're ready to come back, talk about what else you have coming out, let us know, and we will get it out there. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for doing this. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You'll get lots of questions. That's the other thing I should say. If people have questions, if we do this all the time, if people have questions, they can put questions either on our YouTube channel or on our website, and we'll get them to you. If we don't know the answers, which likely we don't, we'll get them to you, and we'll get them answered to those individuals and also on our social media.
Awesome.
Good.
All right. Thanks so much. See you guys.
Thank you, Leslie.
Okay. Okay, now we're done. She can cut it off there. Thank you guys